I wasn't really sure if I should talk about this story or not. Not because of the nature of the story itself, but because this kind of thing is sadly very common and it just didn't seem like a good idea to talk about it. So I kind of left it for a bit, and then I saw people starting to talk about it in various other locations and a few videos popped up around it, and I thought, alright then, I suppose it might be worth mentioning after all. Also, being a relatively new YouTuber, only starting in December 2020, this is also kind of relevant to me, I suppose. And speaking of being a new YouTuber, at the time of recording this video, we're actually only 3 subs away from reaching our second subscriber goal of 100. So if you're watching this right now and you're not subscribed to the channel, perhaps take a look at the rest of my content, and if you like what you see, please do consider clicking that little red button just below the video. We are so close to the goal, and you guys subscribing, watching, leaving thumbs up, all that stuff just helps get my videos seen by more people, and of course I'd really appreciate that. So the story centers around Alanah Pearce. She is pretty well known in the games industry, I would say. She's worked at IGN, Rooster Teeth, and at the moment she's working on the new God of War Ragnarok game at Sony Santa Monica Studios as a writer. Safe to say she's been around quite a bit in the industry, and I mean that in a good way. She's no stranger to morons on the internet sending her vile messages and leaving disgusting comments on her social media, but having said that, I would say that's pretty much par for the course for everybody who's a public figure online, regardless of who you are or what you identify as or any of that. Everyone gets this kind of crap to some degree. I'm not excusing it, by the way, I'm just saying that it shouldn't happen to anyone, but unfortunately it does. It's just the world we live in. After all, there's millions of idiots out there with easy access to the internet, so this kind of thing is bound to happen. So what happened in this case? Well, if you haven't heard, the new God of War Ragnarok game was very recently delayed to 2022. And as you can imagine, a lot of people were not happy about this. Me personally, I wasn't too bothered by the news. I played and beat the most recent God of War game, but I didn't really do any of the side stuff, and once the credits rolled, I just kind of moved on. I like the game, don't get me wrong, you know, it was very well made, and it's just, I just don't really care about the characters not having grown up with God of War as a series. I think I played Ascension on PS3, but that's about it. But anyway, Ragnarok was delayed, as I said, and some absolute lowlife decided to go and basically blame Alanah Pearce by sending her a DM which contained language that I'm not even going to repeat here. I'll put it up on the screen and censor the words. I'm not monetized yet on this channel, so saying this stuff probably wouldn't affect anything here, but it's more out of respect for the people who may or may not be watching this video than anything else. So here it is. This is what this person sent to her. I'm going to read it to you and obviously omit the bad language. And I've also rearranged some of the words so that the grammar made sense, because it was all over the place. I don't know whether perhaps English is not this person's first language, either that or they're just completely illiterate. Either way, this is what they said. You get hired, then God of War is delayed first time ever. Too busy dreaming about getting gang by all your simp Twitch subs to actually do work. Hope it happens and someone streams it and you get fired because they all know you're a useless, and the game comes out 2021 and PS5 only. Now, she really doesn't need the likes of me defending her. She's done this little dance many times before, and I'm sure she knows how to handle it. She was also famous for sending some of these horrible messages to the parents of some of the people who sent them to her, and she genuinely doesn't really seem to be bothered by these weirdos, so I guess it is what it is. I mean, do I agree with everything she's ever said? No, not really. I actually find that I disagree with her on a lot of her takes, funnily enough, but I would say that's pretty normal. I mean, you're never going to agree with everyone, are you? But I really don't think she, or really anybody, deserve this kind of harassment. And you do start to get into this kind of conversation about, you know, thought police. How do you stop someone from just sending a nasty message? I mean, the easiest way to deal with it is to just ignore it, but I imagine for some people this must be quite a scary experience, especially if they're not used to it like she is. But in regards to the people or person in this case that sent this message, they can only really fall into one of two categories in my opinion. Either, one, they're just an absolute moron, one of the scummiest people on the earth who thinks this is funny and is just an awful person, or they're mentally disturbed or mentally ill. That's really the only two things I can think of. Now, if they're mentally ill, clearly they need some help, and I really do feel sorry for them in a way, because what kind of crap must they have gone through, in order to treat other people this way and send these nasty messages. I just can't imagine. But then on the other side of that coin, if they are just doing this for fun and they think it's funny to say this stuff to people, then there's just no helping people like that. At this point in my life, now that I'm in my early 30s, I have got to a point with a lot of people where if they act this kind of way, scumbag kind of stuff, then I just don't want anything to do with them. I'm not into giving second, third, fourth, fifth chances to people. It's just a fact of life that some people out in this world are just horrible human beings. And I don't even want to call them human beings sometimes because, frankly, some of them don't deserve the title. And earlier I said that this is kind of relevant to me being a new YouTuber. As I said, I only started about 6-7 months ago in December of 2020. This is kind of relevant to me. I am putting myself out there, putting these things. Obviously, I don't have my face on camera as of yet. I mean, maybe in the future, if I do streaming and stuff, that's a possibility. But as of right now, I've not really had anything horrible or nasty said to me. I mean, there was a few videos back where a certain viewer of mine, I don't know if they'll see this video and I don't know if they're a subscriber of mine at the moment, but they came in a little bit hot, on one of their comments to me. They were saying things that were kind of a bit insulting, or at least they could have been construed as insults. And we went back and forth, through quite a few public comments. And in the end, it was just amicable at the end. We just agreed to disagree on a certain thing. And it was great. We just started chatting after that. And that's the thing. If people do this kind of stuff, I don't rise to it. I never rise to that kind of thing because there's just no reason to. I sometimes feel pity, I feel almost upset for these people that they have to act that way. What in their life drives them to be like that? I just don't know. And that kind of stuff will never bother me because I've been through many instances of bullying in my childhood, which is ironic because, I'm 6'5" and I've always been very tall, even in, my younger days of school. And so I'm no stranger to nasty comments and bullying. It happens online now because back then, there was no internet. But nowadays, it's an online thing, and these people are just emboldened by the anonymity and they can just say whatever they want without repercussions. And honestly, I don't know how to even police it, because could you imagine having to actually physically police all of these comments that happen in a day? Probably billions and billions of comments every single day. There's just no way to do it. And then you start trying to block certain words and people find ways around it, and then you're almost blocking entire sentences. I just do not know of a way that you could stop things like this happening. So what I really think is that the best way to get around it is to just ignore it. It's the only thing that you as a creator or a public figure can do. You just have to kind of not look at it. And don't get me wrong, I read all my comments currently on YouTube. Now, let's say right now I have like 97 subscribers. So say I had 100,000 one day, it might be nigh on impossible for me to read every single comment plus get content out, I will try and skim through everything for as long as I physically can to see what people are saying and, pick out certain things to reply to. Right now, I try to reply to basically everybody if I can, unless they make multiple comments on the same video. But in general, this is relevant to me. I think it's disgusting that people do this. Does she deserve it? Absolutely not. Does anyone deserve it? Absolutely not. How do you fix it? I don't really know. I think ignoring it is probably the best way around it. It's not a quality fix, but it is the one that we have. I'll also leave a link to her Instagram and YouTube channel down below. And if you're not subscribed or following her, now would probably be a good time to go over there and show some support. Maybe send her a nice message or an encouraging message just to let her know that, she's not alone and this kind of stuff happens. Just something nice, And I would also like to hear from you guys in the comments if you can think of any way that you could possibly stop this kind of thing from happening. I suspect it might be a sort of educational system kind of thing, like educating these people when they're young. But I mean, that's a whole political discussion that I am not qualified to talk about. So if any of you want to throw some suggestions down into the comments about what could be done to stop this, has this ever happened to you? And if it has, how did you deal with it? If you're looking for retro games, why not try out Pyro Games? They're an online retro games reseller here in the UK. There'll be a direct link to their store down below in the video description, along with a discount code for 10% off your entire order. And of course, remember to leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, or perhaps a thumbs down if you didn't enjoy the video. Hit the subscribe button if you want to help us reach our goal. But with all that said, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.